Hi, I'm David Davis from ActualTech Media. I'm excited to be here at the headquarters of Hedvig, and I'm joined by Mr. Rob Whiteley. He's the Vice President of Marketing. How you doing, Rob?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks for being on. So we've been talking a little bit about, getting started with software-defined storage, but I wanted to take it a little bit deeper. Let's talk about a little primer of Hedvig's architecture.
Sure.
Can you tell us how it works?
Yeah, I'm going to use my trusty printed magnets here to give you kind of a quick architectural overview. So basically think of this little guy as a commodity server, right? And so up here you're going to run your applications, your hypervisors. You take that exact same type of commodity server, probably one packed with disk, you put our software on it and it becomes part of our storage. So these green ones are here to indicate that these are servers running our software. And we have a two-tier architecture, and that's important, and I'll get to that in a second. But the idea is these guys have a bunch of disks in it. We aggregate and virtualize all that as one big capacity, and we expose kind of block file and object up to this compute tier, right? So that's one thing. Now to make that work, we have this little thing called a proxy, right? And the idea behind the proxy is it's in charge of actually terminating the traffic inside this local server and sending it down to this underlying cluster.
Okay.
So that's the two-tier architecture. We keep a complete distinction between compute and storage. And the value here is you can now independently scale the two, right? Because this proxy can do things like caching. So now I can get performance scale by just adding more compute. Every time I add a black box, I put another proxy on it. Or I can scale capacity by just adding another server. So that's what gives us a lot of our flexibility.
Very nice. So you're able to scale out your storage, you're able to scale out your compute as you need to. What if one of these commodity servers went up to the public cloud or something like that? Is it still possible to communicate with this shared storage pool?
Yes, absolutely. And that's another advantage of the two-tier architecture is, okay, now imagine this is up in sort of AWS. Because it can do local caching, you don't have to pay that WAN latency going across the network or the internet. And so the capacity could be in your private data center, and you could burst out to the cloud for compute, and this will construct just a subset of the data and makes it very good for cloud use cases. And by the way, you could do the reverse. You could run this in the cloud, and you could have this on-prem. But it really kind of depends on what the data locality, kind of what the workload requirements are.
Okay. And what about the different workloads that are running on these hosts? I mean, can I have VMs and containers and physical hosts? Do they all still work and communicate with this shared storage cluster?
So let's go back to our quick example here. Right. Imagine these are VMs. Let's imagine that these are containers. And let's imagine that this is bare metal applications. Because this proxy is only concerned about these applications on this local host, it'll handle that traffic, terminate the protocol, and send it down to our cluster. So by the time it's coming down here, it'll look the same regardless of what compute instance it is. And we do support all three of these environments, so it's very handy for kind of mixed and matched. And a lot of customers are just experimenting with Docker, and so they might not have a lot of data, but they have a ton of VMware data. So the idea is you don't have to stand up yet another platform to handle an environment like that.
Okay. And if I wanted to get started, let's say with just like my backups infrastructure, let's say this is my backup host, I could just place my backup data on here to get started with software-defined storage?
Yeah, and so in that example, imagine rather than an application server, this is now a media server.
Okay.
Right, and it will basically write to the proxy, and the proxy writes to us. Now, one thing I didn't talk about is you could actually take this proxy and decouple it and run it as its own dedicated tier, right, which would make sense in some backup environments. You could almost have a three-tier architecture if you wanted to, but it really kind of gets into what are your performance and scale needs.
Okay. Well, it sounds very easy to do. What should people do if they want to get started?
Well, you can head over to hedviginc.com. We have a lot more information. If you go to /product, you'll see a lot more about the product and how it works.
Excellent. Thanks, Rob.
Right. Thank you.